Hello everyone, welcome back to my Crafts by the Bow channel. Today I'm going to use one of the free celebration stamps. You've probably seen me use this one and this one a couple of times already. I'm actually in love with this one. And I'm also going to use just a sentiment from the art gallery set, and I'm using this You Are Lovely. So I'm going to use this one for my image and this one for my sentiment. And I've chosen the black and white paper that we have. Now this is in the annual catalogue and it's called Perfectly Penciled. And each side has a floral image. And oh look, that's got two floral images. Right. Most have sort of a less decorative background and a floral image. I love this dotty one as well with the flowers. So it is a really pretty paper, and it's one of those that if you wanted you could colour in, and you could use watercolour crayons, you could use blends, and you could make this look really pretty. Then you could cut it out, you could fussy cut it out if you wanted, or you could just use them as a background paper coloured in. So I'm going to be using that. And I'm making a whole batch of cards today. I'm going to be making my thank you cards for my customers who have ordered, and my team cards for all the ladies that are on my Crafts by the Bow team. I'm also going to be using the silver, it's like a twine, like a silver thread, and it comes in a pack with a gold and a silver. I'm using lots of things. I'm using these stylish shapes dies. You've seen me use this like little banner end one. I'm going to be using the two largest of the squares, and they give you like a stitched outline on them. I'm using those, and I think that's it. I'm going to make two cards at the same time with you. I've just got my bases and they're cut. They're just plain basic white, and they're cut at 4 1/4 by 11 and scored at 5 1/2, so that they will be either landscape or portrait orientation, but they just open differently. Okay, and I've got my envelopes because I want to stamp envelopes as well. And I've cut already my basic black background. Now all the sizes and the measurements for each of the individual pieces, they will all be on my blog. So you can go and I will put the blog link on the YouTube channel. I've cut out, using those two squares, I've cut the largest and the smallest, both in the basic white, in the thinner basic white. I need two sets of those. I need two of my black pieces. Okay, and then the designer series paper. And the one I chose, or the two I chose, is the one with the flowers that has the dots on the back, and the one that's like a little crisscross plaid almost with flowers on the back. Okay, and these are cut. This largest one is 5 by 2 1/2, and the smallest one is 5 by 1 1/4. But again, I will put all of those measurements on. So it's really quick and easy to assemble. And I'm going to have the floral piece at the top here and the ginghamy piece at the bottom. Now these should just fit perfectly and give you a border. There's no overlap or anything. So let's have those glued down. I'm going to make sure I have a little bit in the corners, just so that those edges are properly adhered. And I'm going to pop this one on first. I'm not going to stick it all the way down until I've got my next piece on, just in case I need to move the paper around a little tiny bit. Okay. Oh, that looks pretty good. Okay, now I'm going to use some of this twine, and all I need is the width of the black plus a little bit to stick over. You don't need ribbon scissors for it. It's not ribbon and we're not tying a bow or anything. But I want this to go right where that join is. So I'm going to put a little bit of tearing tape on the back. Let me see whereabouts the join will be. Just there. You don't need too much. And it's easier to use something like a tearing tape than a liquid glue because it won't always dry with the liquid glue and it won't always stick down. So I'm lining it up right on that divider line and making sure that I've got enough just to fold over there. And then the same all the way over. I'm keeping it quite taut, but not tight enough that it's bending the card. Okay. And I'm only going to do the one background at the moment. And so this is going to go on our card like this. But before I attach it, I'm going to do all the stamping. Okay. So I'm using the little rose image. And a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, you maybe saw me colour this image on my Facebook Live. And I'm using the Melon Mambo Stampin' Right marker and the Purpose-As Stampin' Right marker. And I'm going to stamp on the two smaller pieces. I'm going to do the flower head first, and for that I need this brush end. I don't want to use the bullet tip end, I'm going to use the brush end. And keep this fairly flat and just colour over it. Now if you do long sweeps on a bigger piece, it comes out less mottly. If you do, like I'm going to do for the leaves, if you're colouring in like this, you find that the ink is a little bit more mottly, but for this I quite like that. I'm just going to go across there because I just missed a tiny piece. There we go. And I'm going to stamp it just on here, but slightly to the left-hand side. I'm not putting it right in the middle. Okay. Whoops. Pop that over there to dry. I'm going to do the same on the other one. So I'm going to go across. I'm not worried if I've missed little pieces, because it makes it look more like a watercolour image. Not like you've stamped it flat, but just like it's a watercolour picture. And again, I'm going to make it go just off centre. Oh, that one's, see how it's different? You know, I thought I'd done them both the same. This one's a little bit darker in places. I'm going to do my card bases, and I know that this one's going to go landscape, so I'm going to do on the inside, just on the corner here. And then with the green again. This is a really easy card to batch make, because once you've got all your pieces cut, you can assemble it really quickly. Okay, and then here's my other base, but for this one I'm going to orientate it portrait. So I'm going to make sure that I stamp it in the corner, but that I've changed the orientation of the cardstock. And then last of all, I'm going to do the envelopes. And again, just the same, just make sure you undo the flap, because sometimes if the flap is still down and you try to stamp over it, it will make sort of a bump in the paper, and some of the stamping might not come out, or it might move the image on the stamp block and it doesn't look quite as good. So there's one, and here's the second one. Because we're stamping quite quickly, the image doesn't have time to dry out. But if you were doing a lot of this kind of colouring and it is starting to dry out, you can just breathe on there and it will sort of reignite the inks. Okay, so that's all we need for that. I'm just going to clean this off, and then we're going to stamp our sentiment, and then already it's time to assemble the card. one right over there. And here I've got my sentiment, the You Are Lovely one, and I've got my black Memento ink, and I've only just inked this up, so it's a little bit juicy. I think really it could have been to do a little bit less juicy, but we'll see how we go. Now, remember that we positioned this slightly to the left. The sentiment is going to go to the right, and it will stamp over the top of the rose stem, but that it doesn't matter. That's what I'm aiming for. Okay, see how it is a little bit juicy, but that's okay. Pop that one away, and time to assemble. Let me see, where did I put my two bases? Here we go. So I'm going to do this one first. Where we stamped, that's going to be the inside. I'm just going to close that over, go over this with my bone folder. And then this we can attach straight on to the base. Now if you wanted, you could put this on dimensionals and have it a little bit higher up. I'm not going to. I'm just going to attach it with my liquid glue. But sometimes it's nice to have another layer. Oops. I'll just pop that back on there. I might just put a little bit of tear and tape over the back of these so that they don't lift up. There we go, there's that one. And over the back of here. And then I'll get my pokey tool and take those little back ends off. There we go. And I'm going to just make sure that I've got this the right way round. Pop that on here. I'm just moving the twine so that it's definitely in the middle where I want it. I have a little bit of glue here that's squeezed out. Now, once that dries, I'll just go over it with my glue eraser and rub that off. Now, I'm going to take the image that we've done and I'm going to just double mount it onto here like this. I like that look of the white border, but if you wanted to have a different colour, you could do the larger square in a different colour. I like when you have black and white and just one little pop of colour. It really draws your eye to the image. Okay, now let's find some dimensionals. And we'll pop these on. There we go. Take those backings off. You could do this with your pokey tool as well. You take a pick tool. Right. And I'm going to put this over at the right hand side. Oops. Lift it up, let's see if it's straight. Oh, it is. Okay. And then I'm going to put on some of the rhinestone basic jewels. And I'm just going to put 3 of the little smallest ones on, the little tiny ones, and I'm going to put them all on the flower piece. Oops, that one's stuck on my finger. Okay, so there we are. That's my basic layout. Now you saw that I'd actually stamped for 2, so you know that I'm going to be making another one. And you probably worked out that it was going to be portrait way just because of the way I stamped here. I'm going to close this one up and I'm going to use exactly the same pieces. So I've got the floral piece and the little plaid piece. I've got my basic one, but what I'm going to do is turn the paper over. This side, it's the spots. I'm going to have the spotty side at the right, and this side has got those flowers on. Now I was careful when I cut this. Let me find the piece for you so I can just show you. When I cut it, because it has an image going this way, I made sure to cut all my pieces so that this was going to be orientated the right way for when I did a portrait one. Okay, and it's exactly the same. We're going to build it up exactly the same way. I'm putting the smaller one on first. I'm actually going to turn it round because I find it easier to look at it this way. And I pop it on there, but I'm not going to stick it right down until I've got this piece on. Now there's nothing to stop you mixing and matching or even keeping the same as this one and just orientating it this way. I liked the look of this flower with the spots. So just move that one up a tiny bit there. Okay, and then again we're going to put our little piece of twine on the back. Just check to see where that will be. Make it the same at the other side. Take those backings off. I find it easier to use this tool for the double-sided tape because you can get right in underneath a little bit easier. Okay, and then I'm just going to lay this over here, down that seam that we've made. Stick that piece down. Doesn't like sticking onto that tape very much, does it? So I'm going to do the same as we did with the first one and add a little bit of tear and tape over the back as well, just to keep it right down. It's sticking to my finger really well. Okay, get that pokey tool again. Then let's find our base. Here it is. Make sure it's the right way around. And turn it this way. Make sure that's glued all the way down. We'll pop these two pieces together. If you didn't have twine and you wanted to use ribbon, you could do that too. Or if you didn't have a ribbon, you could use a very narrow piece of card. Like here's one of my little scraps. You could pop that right down instead. Let me just show you what that would look like. So that looks quite nice too. I would maybe make it a tiny bit narrower than this, maybe a 1/4 of an inch strip. But it would certainly work. And you could choose the colour that matched your image. So I could have chosen like a little piece of Melon Mambo cardstock to put down, or even one of the ribbons like the seam binding and coloured it with a blend, and then it would have been just the same colour. Now this one I'm going to make it a little bit higher up at the top here like this, and I could use the same little rhinestones, or I also have these red and green adhesive backed pearls, and there's a little silver one in there. So I'm going to use these little silver ones just to show you some of the different ones that we have. So there we are. So they're my two little cards, exactly the same layout, just the orientation is different. I'll pop them with the envelopes, like this. And they're going to be my team cards and my thank you cards for the month. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check on my blog and that will have everything that I've used listed for you. Take care and thanks again for joining me. Bye-bye.